I'm going to talk just for a few minutes here about Camp Barnabas, and then I'll invite the participants to come here in just a moment. But let me tell you just a little bit about the camp before we get started, before they come up. This is our fifth year, or this was our fifth year this summer, going to Camp Barnabas from First Baptist Church. But I've been many more years before that. In fact, in Springfield, when I was hired to be the youth pastor over there, the first year that I got there, I thought, we need to take the kids on a mission trip. And I didn't know where that would be. And I was going through, back in those days, you got these video tapes as youth pastors, and it was all of these places promoting for you to use their resources. And I was going through one of those tapes, and there was a video on that tape from Camp Barnabas, all the way back. This was somewhere around the year 1999, the year 2000. And I watched that video, and it looked like, wow, this would be a great experience for our teenagers to be a part of. So I took a group down that first year, not really having any idea of how it was going to turn out. I was a little nervous when I got there, especially when I began to go through the training, and they were telling me how difficult it would be. I thought, I don't know if I should have brought them down here, but it turned out to be a great experience, and it's really cool to see how the kids, all the way back that many years ago, 16 years ago, those kids' lives have been transformed by Camp Barnabas through the years. And I realized then that Camp Barnabas was a wonderful place. In fact, I would say there's really no other place quite like Camp Barnabas. And when I take our teens to Camp Barnabas, I want to be clear, they're really not going to camp for a week. I think that's kind of, some people say, you see Camp Barnabas, and I say, well, we're sending our kids to camp. That's not at all what Camp Barnabas is. Now, church camp is a great place, and church camp is a place that we want our kids to go and experience camp, but Camp Barnabas is not that at all. Camp Barnabas is a mission trip, and it's where our kids are going to help other kids have a camp experience. I've taken mission trips all over the place. We've been to the Four Corners Indian Reservation, or I've taken groups to Four Corners Indian Reservation. I've taken groups to Mexico. We've done several work camps. And again, there's nothing quite like Camp Barnabas, and I think that's why we keep coming back to Camp Barnabas year after year. And with the resources that we have, or the limited resources we have at First Baptist, we can't take 2 or 3 mission trips. I'm not a full-time youth pastor here, right? I'm your pastor. And so we can't take 2 or 3 mission trips a year, and if I can pick one, it's going to be Camp Barnabas just because of the impact. Now, Camp Barnabas is a 5-day camp for children with disabilities. And there are 3 locations now. There's one in Branson, Missouri, one in Purdy, Missouri, and that's the one that we go to. That's the original camp. They just opened this year a camp in Colorado. So they have 3 different locations now. We've always been to the one in its original location in Purdy, Missouri. Now, you ask, where is Purdy? It's very Purdy there, right? It's about an hour south and west of Springfield, Missouri, and about an hour south and east of Joplin, Missouri. So kind of there, really out in the middle of nowhere. That would be a good way to describe where Camp Barnabas is. The camps vary by disability, so some weeks are all wheelchairs. And again, they have a young group and then an older group for each week. Some groups, the week that we go is for intellectual disabilities and autism. They have a blind and a deaf week, and they have a terminal illness week. The weeks vary from year to year, but they're different disabilities for different weeks. Every year we've gone to the week that is for intellectual and developmental disabilities and or autism. The group arrives at the camp, or our group arrives at the camp one day before the campers arrive. And they arrive and they go over, they do training, they meet in groups and pick out which camper is going to be their camper for the week. And then you'll hear a little bit more about this later, but then the campers arrive. And that's a big deal at camp when the campers arrive. They set up a big kind of parade sort of thing and a tunnel for them to run through, and it's very, very exciting. But once the campers arrive, and they're going to talk about this in a minute, our teens who are 16 years or older are given a camper to care for about 23 hours out of the 24 hours a day, okay? Now, if a female has a male camper, of course, she doesn't sleep in that cabin, so she has a little bit more of a break. But you can imagine that's quite a challenge, don't you think, to care for someone else for 23 hours a day, and they're going to share about that in just a minute. But our teens, the purpose is for them to have or to help these children with disabilities have a week of camp. And the week that we go, the kids are aged, I think, 16 or 17 through about 27. What's the oldest kid there, Anna? About 27, 28. So really, some of these campers are older than our teens. So when I say children, I'm not really talking about children, but to help the campers have a good week. Again, they're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. Now, we're going to show a brief video here in just a moment of our kids who attended. Unfortunately, everybody can't be here today. We've got kids going off to college, and so we took 10 from our church. Levi would be number 11. He's going to share a little bit today, and then only about 5 or 6 are going to be able to share today. So not everybody will be here, but the video I'm going to show up is going to show every camper or every person from our church that went, and it'll be a picture of them with their camper for the week. So you'll see the others that went. So I'm going to ask Alex, Anna. Anna, by the way, we had 3 Annas out of 10 kids. We had 3 Annas. Imagine that. So we got 2 Annas with us today. But Alex, Anna, Elizabeth, Dawson, John, and Levi. If you'll make your way to the stage, and Sally's going to run this video. There's no sound to this video of the campers. Nope. Oh yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. That's the right one. I thought I had music on there. At the end. Yeah. Hey, you can have a seat wherever you want to, John. All right. Gives you an idea of the kids that went. And I'm going to ask, I told them, I promised them today, this is going to be pretty informal, okay? So not going to stand here with a written speech. I'm just going to ask them some questions, and then they're going to respond however they want to respond. So let me just ask you, first of all, to go around and just say your name, and then tell the camper that you have with it. And by the way, we are fortunate to have John with us here this morning. This was the first year that we got to take a camper with us. So our Camp Barnabas started on day 1 here. This is John Woodrich. John is a friend of our families, and we encouraged his parents to send him to Camp Barnabas this year, and they sent him along with us. So he rode down with us and spent the whole week with us, and Anna was able to have him as her camper this week. So why don't you do that, and then pass and let John introduce himself, and then we'll just go right down the line. Say your name and who your camper is, and maybe what disability your camper had.
Okay. I'm Anna. I think Dad pretty much just covered it all. John's my buddy, and this was my 5th year going to camp, and yeah, here's John.
Say your name, John. Would you tell everybody who you are?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Talk in the microphone.
All right. First camp. These campers are your Camp Barnabas with me, Alex, Dawson, and Anna.
Did you have a good time at camp?
Yep.
Do you want to go back again?
Yep.
All right. You pass the microphone to Elizabeth and let her tell us her name. Thanks, John.
Okay. I'm Elizabeth. This was my first year at Camp Barnabas, and I actually didn't have a camper. I was a barnstormer, which basically means I worked in the kitchen and cleaned bathrooms. But it was hard work, but lots of fun.
My name's Dawson. My camper was Tanner, and he had autism and Down syndrome and was nonverbal.
Hi, my name is Levi. I actually didn't have a camper either. I got to help the barnstormers in the evening, so.
My name's Alex. I've actually had the same camper for 4 years. This last camp was my 4th year.
I'm Anna. My camper's name was Sindel, and it's my second year. And she had a couple different things with her brain, which are really long words, so I can't pronounce. And then she had like muscle coordination problems too.
All right, thank you. Now, pass the microphone to Levi. You can go first since you have the microphone. I'll tell the story a little bit if that's okay, but when we got there, Levi was just along for the ride, okay? Levi's not old enough to go to Camp Barnabas, and when we got there, he expressed a desire. He said, I really want to help. I want to do this, you know? So we asked the camp coordinator, is there anything he can do for the week? And so they gave him a spot to be a barnstormer in the evenings. Why don't you tell a little bit about maybe what you did every day?
Okay, so we stayed at a hotel like away from the camp, and in the evenings we would go visit everybody and their campers. And I really wanted to help the barnstormers this year, so I got to help in the evening. I got to help set up the tables for the campers to sit at, and I got to serve the food to the campers, and then I got to clean up their dishes and just pretty much clean up after them, and that's pretty much what barnstormers do.
Okay. And pass the microphone to Elizabeth. And Elizabeth, why don't you tell us what else the barnstormers had to do throughout the week?
Oh, wow. Well, our hours are kind of different from the other campers. We actually get up at like 7:30. We're expected at the mess hall by 8, and we don't get to bed till like 11:30. And then we do it all over again the next day. But what we do, we set up for breakfast in the morning, and that's basically the same thing. You do it every meal. You set tables, you serve food, you wash dishes, you mop the floor, you sweep the floor, you make sure everything's clean and sanitized for the campers. Then also after the meal, you clean up the meal and then set up for the next meal. Round 3, we're expected at the shed behind the mess hall, and we clean the bathrooms. We go around to every cabin and clean bathrooms, and then we get to hang out with the campers a little bit. We go to the party every night, and then we have our own party after that party, and then we go to bed around 11:30 and do it all over again the next day.
All right. Good. John, why don't you tell everybody what your favorite part of camp was?
First one is, maybe campers with me at Dawson to some sizzle Lewis.
St. Louis. We got to stop in St. Louis on the way there, and John remembers the hotel room number, and he remembers swimming in the pool there.
John,
That was
tell
his
us
favorite.
about
Was that your favorite
hotel.
part?
Tell us about the hotel in St. Louis.
Okay. We have six boys, Christian 49 with Alex, Dawson, and Preston Brown.
Yep, he's telling who he stayed with in the hotel room and what the room number was. Okay. All right, good, John. All right, would you give Anna the microphone back? Why don't you guys share about your most challenging point of the week?
Well, we had a camper in our cabin who was a little bit lower functioning, and you remember Wesley, John? Yes. Wesley, yeah, as John's buddy. And this to me was just a really cool illustration of God's love for us. Wesley, I'm not sure exactly what his diagnosis was, but he was nonverbal, and he would hit a lot of times to say no. That was his no. And his counselor knew going into it that it was going to be a challenging week. And as different counselors in the cabin, we just try to be there for each other, try to encourage each other. And after the first day, he expressed, it was his first year ever going, and he expressed how he didn't know how he was going to do it the rest of the week. He was really overwhelmed. And the next day, he shared something that I'll never forget. He said, Wesley, for a little background information, a lot of times he would hit when you would be leading him in a direction that he wouldn't want to go. So he loved to walk around. He would want to hold your hand and walk around, sometimes for hours. He just wanted to walk around. That's what he loved to do at camp. And when you would maybe try to go right, but he wanted to go left, he'd get angry, and that's when he would hit. And so his counselor said that he realized that that's just like God is with us, because he's leading us, and we try to go in one direction, and he wants to go in another, and we get mad and we get angry. And then what Wesley would do is he would do the sign language for "I'm sorry," and he would just be beating his chest with that sign language, like over and over and over. Like you could tell that he was just so upset. And then he would turn around and he would hit all over again. And that's like frustrating as his counselor, because he sees him be sorry and then he sees him do it all over again. And so he said, that's how God loves us. He said, God leads us in a direction we don't want to go. We get angry, we apologize, and then we turn around and we do it all over again. And he said, I'm not giving up on Wesley because God doesn't give up on me. And that was really cool. And I actually got to spend some time with him and kind of see that analogy. And it was really cool. And it was really cool seeing how John just loved on him. And he absolutely loved John. He would just grin ear to ear. John would give him hugs. And you remember Wesley? Yeah. What is he like? Oh, he was crying? Yep. Well, he likes motorcycles, right? Yes. Yeah, and you cheered him up whenever he was sad? Yep. Yeah, so that was really cool to see.
I'll take this. How about you, Doss? What was your most challenging?
I think my most challenging thing this week with the nonverbal camper was kind of understanding what he wanted to do, and helping him have a good time without being super involved in all the activities and parties, because he didn't like loud noises and crowded places and stuff like that. So just helping him have a good time without all of that stuff was probably my biggest challenge this week.
How about you, Alex?
For me, the most challenging part was in our cabin, we actually had 3 or 4 campers who were counseled by girls. So at nighttime, the girls would leave, and then it would be like a 2-to-1 ratio for guy counselors in our cabin to campers. So that got a little crazy several nights, but it was fun to be able to take care of multiple campers and to be able to show them God's love through our care for them.
Anna?
Right. Probably the most challenging thing was knowing what my camper liked and didn't like to do. It was like, she would get really excited about everything, but then like when the time came, she didn't really enjoy it much. So you would have to get her excited and then like kind of force her to do things, and then she ended up like enjoying it more than she thought she would, but like knowing what to push and not what to push. So that was probably most.
All right. So Camp Barnabas is hard sometimes, right? And it's challenging, but it's also very rewarding. Wouldn't you agree? So why don't you share about, and any of you can share this that would want to, about your most rewarding experience.
I think my most rewarding experience this week was getting Tanner to dance at the dance party at the end of the week. It was a struggle to get him there because he wouldn't eat in the cafeteria because it was loud and crowded and stuff. And so getting him to a dance party was an achievement. And so I took some sound muffling earphones from the Rifles and put them on him, and took a half hour to get him down there. And then finally, once he was down there, I got him on his feet and dancing. And so that was probably, there's the video there. So that was a really rewarding experience for me, I guess. See, he has the headphones on that kind of blocked out the sound and stuff.
Yeah, that was quite the accomplishment to see Tanner dancing, because Dawson, most of the meals he had to sit out on the bench and feed him out there. So for him to be able to dance was quite. You can kind of see in the background too. This is what one of the parties is like. and they dance. This was the dance, and it's under a big shelter that's outside. So that was a lot of fun. All right. Get to watch Dawson's moves there. Anybody else want to share about a rewarding experience?
Well, my most rewarding experience was that I knew I was getting to help the campers by serving them and cleaning up after them, and that's really made me happy to know that I can do that for the campers.
Okay, thanks, Levi.
For me, the most rewarding experience wasn't actually to do with my camper. There was a young man in our cabin named Austin, and he pretty much didn't talk for the first 2 days or didn't really interact at all with any of us or his counselor. And then the third day, the nice part about camp is that a lot of the campers return, so you're able to talk to the counselor who had them the previous year. So the counselor that had him the previous year told one of us that he likes to play tag. So that morning we got up and we just poked him, and he immediately got out of bed and started chasing us around the cabin. And that's what we did for the rest of the week, because that's how we communicated. We just poked him, and he'd poke you back, and then you'd run around the camp, and it was a really cool experience to see him open up and to be able to communicate through that.
It was Camp Barnabas with Wayne and Christy. This is so much fun.
Thank you, John. That's awesome. Anybody else want to share about a rewarding experience?
I think for me, kind of like what Alex was saying, how we've been for a few years now. So we have had previous campers that we know and we've spent the week with, and getting to kind of talk to their counselors and kind of even seeing those campers again, seeing a camper that maybe you had 2 years ago run up to you and you spent the whole week with them 2 years ago, and getting to introduce them to John, because this was John's first year there, and kind of getting to bring John from home to camp and getting to see people from camp that I know interacting with John. It was just really cool. It was really awesome. And it was just really fun getting to kind of share that with him and see how much he loved it. Everyone said, people were asking me, they were like, this isn't his first year, is it? And I was like, yeah, it's his first year. I said, how does he already know everyone? He just made friends with everyone, and he always wanted to say the prayers at, whether it be the devotions or the meals or anything. And it was really fun watching him kind of soak up camp and learn all the cheers and everything, so it was fun. And
the neat thing is that after we got back our first year from Camp Barnabas, or it might have been the second, I'm not sure, but Anna and some others who had gone to Camp Barnabas actually started a club at their high school called Project Us. And John became a part of that club, yeah. and so it kind of has gone full circle back again. Anybody else want to share about a rewarding experience that hasn't shared yet?
Probably the most rewarding thing for me was when my camper and I finally got to have a little conversation. It was like a minute and a half, but she never talked to me like the whole week. She would have conversations with herself, and so I would just kind of like listen in and like try to talk to her. But at the end of the week when she was leaving, I was like telling her bye and everything, and then like asking her if I would see her again like next year and stuff, and like she finally answered, and like we had like a little minute and a half conversation, but it was really nice to finally be able to do that with her.
Very neat.
Like I said before, I don't get much time with the campers, but when you're spending all day stressing out, trying to get everything done, all the meals taken care of, and the cafeteria cleaned up and everything, it's really rewarding to get to serve or something and just have somebody thank you, or one of the campers smile at you and just tell them how much they appreciate you. It's really rewarding, and like it just makes you like calm down. So that was really rewarding.
Thank you. Gets married to you. My best friend, we get married. Camp visit church. Get married. If I was to say love you, Anna.
I love you too, John.
He wants to get married to Anna at church, is what he said. So.
I love you too, buddy.
All right. One last question. How did you grow as a Christian as a result of being and spending time at Camp Barnabas? Would anybody like to share about that?
Okay.
It was more just growing with patience and stuff. Being with a cabin full of people that know exactly what buttons to push to make you impatient is always a challenge, and it's always fun getting to know all of the guys in the cabin. But just growing in patience and growing and being able to just roll with the punches and not let little things like a camper vomiting or hitting you or biting you or just, doing whatever get you upset was a real growth for me.
For me, Camp Barnabas is always kind of an escape from, the stresses of every day. And while there are stresses while you're there, to me, it's just the most real place that you really feel God's love in a way that you wouldn't feel it otherwise. I mean, you do, but it's so real and almost so raw because you see people just giving of themselves and giving back to other people. And it's just kind of a snowball effect because everyone there is not concerned about themselves. They're just concerned about being there for each other and helping someone else have a good time. And for me, it's always a reminder that that's how I need to be every day, not just at camp, but every day. And so after I come back every year, I'm just a different person. It makes me think more about the little things and appreciate the little things. Like, for instance, when you're at camp and Elizabeth was saying, someone smiles at you or someone thanks you, or even just the beauty of nature while you're there, just the hikes that you can go on or on a break or anything. And I know a lot of times you're very tired when you're there, but for me, I don't want to sleep because there's so much to take in and so many people that I can build these relationships with. And just feeling God's love in a way that I don't feel quite as clearly when you're surrounded by just the struggles of every day. And if I could live in that every day, I'll be a better Christian. So.
I really learned how to be a servant. And there were a lot of things that I had to do that I wouldn't necessarily volunteer for with my camper. But I had to do it, and you learn how to put others before yourself, and you become really humble and have a greater appreciation for everything and the life that God's given you and then stuff. But I also learned patience and that you can't always get everything done on time or be where you want to be. And so that was a good opportunity.
No? Okay, there it goes. For me, I saw that God's love can be shared in more ways than just having a conversation with someone. Having a nonverbal camper, I just kind of learned that just by serving someone and caring about them and helping them and loving on them, you can really share God's love. And I think that can kind of be, I can kind of cross over to our everyday lives. We don't have to necessarily have a conversation with someone to share God's love. Just by being a friend to them and serving them, we can share His love.
I grew as a Christian by knowing that you have to do stuff that you wouldn't usually do. I mean, you would not want to do dishes, but you do, but for the campers. And I learned that you can make the campers do the dishes themselves, but you do them anyways, or you can make the counselors do them. But I learned that you have to put others before yourself, and that helped me grow as a Christian.
Everybody else pretty much covered it for me, but just making new friends and like when you're there, you're not focused about yourself. The world is no longer revolved around you. It's revolved around everybody else. You're focused on helping the campers and making sure they have an awesome summer and just making sure they're happy the whole time. And, when somebody's down and upset about something, you try and lift them up. And that just kind of helps change your look at the rest of the world, at the rest of the people. No matter who you are, no matter what you look like, no matter what you say or what you do, you're supposed to love your neighbors as they are. And camp just kind of helps with that and just takes the focus off yourself and more on everybody else in the world.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay.
Building on what Dawson said, it made me think of something else. He was talking about different ways that you can love people. And some of them are really unconventional, but they mean a lot to these campers because these campers might not get the conversation or the attention that they get at camp at home. And one of the guys in our cabin, for instance, he loved football. And he spent the whole week making his roster, switching people positions, and like telling us whether or not we were benched or on the field or whatever. And just talking to him about that and like entertaining him with that and showing some interest whether or not you were backup running back or second string or whatever. And then like that just meant a lot to him, and throwing the football with him, just like entertaining his interest. And then another guy who had autism, he was so smart and he knew so much. He knew about lunar eclipses and the sun and the moon, and he just wanted to tell someone. And he was really quiet, but he wanted you to listen. And if you would just listen to him, he would just talk. And that's how those campers feel loved. That's how they feel like someone cares about them. And to us, it's a conversation or just anything. But for them, it's everything. So I think we could really see more of that every day.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you guys for sharing, and thank you, church, for being supportive and sending them. I'm going to ask them to go ahead and find. They can just sit in the front row down here if you guys want to, so you can watch the video. But Anna put together a video, and we're going to close this time with the video for you to watch. So.